What's up, guys? Going to recap this week in training here, starting with this overhead press. You'll notice I'm moving this with a technique that I probably wouldn't do ordinarily. I just like to move my warm-ups extremely explosively. You'll see as the weight gets heavier here, that 185 looks a little bit closer to what I actually do with my working weight, and this 205 looks pretty close to it. The main workout here today is 12 total repetitions at 235. So I've been working with 235 this block, and the idea is I start out with a 3x3 with a certain weight. In this case, it's 235. And then I go to a 2x3, 1x4, and then a 1x3, 2x4, and then 3 sets of 4. So it's 12 total reps. My strategy for both managing the load and confirming that my training is going according to plan is by using an AMRAP set. So right here, rather than doing a set of 4, as I should, quote unquote, be doing on a 3x4 day, I'm doing this AMRAP set to see how many reps I can actually get, right? And I've got to get at least 6. That's what I've been getting typically in training, and if I'm not getting 6, that's a pretty good indication that the weight is getting too heavy, right? And I'll have to try something else. Yep, missed the re-rack, perfect. But seeing as I got 7 there, I'm still good to move up 5 pounds in the next cycle, so it will be a 3x3 at 240 on Tuesday of this week. Next, I'm moving on to full ROM presses. You'll notice the bar starting right on my chest. I like just practicing this range of motion as well. I'm a strongman, so I'm more interested in the top of that overhead press because you can always use your legs in strongman. So the strict press that I'm using is really just kind of a supplementary lift, if you want to put it, assistance exercise for the push presses that I would actually be doing in competition. So 12 total reps today with 235 in total. Moving on to these behind the neck presses. These felt good. I'm doing this to get a little bit more medial delt activation. I also feel these really strongly in my triceps, which is fantastic. The focus for today is also on external rotation of the shoulder, and these do an incredible job at the bottom of getting a deep stretch into shoulder external rotation, having external force push me into shoulder external rotation, and then pushing myself out of shoulder external rotation. So you'll hear me say this a lot, but anytime you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and this is really just how I like to select my assistance exercises, is what is getting me more mobile in the end ranges and also obviously strengthening me in the end ranges at the same time as it is working on the main lift for today, which is the overhead press. And obviously behind the neck press is going to translate really well to that overhead press. You see me get a deep stretch down there. Moving on now to behind the neck pull-ups, which if you think about it is the exact opposite obviously of behind the neck press. So with the behind the neck press, I'm being pushed into that deep shoulder external rotation and then pressing out of it. With the behind the neck pull-up, I am pulling into that deep shoulder external rotation insofar as I can anyway, and then obviously the weight itself is getting me out of it. It's a bit of a struggle because I was figuring out the band tension. This is a new setup. I usually do these in my home gym, and the bands are slightly different. I'm going to cope and say that I'm 270 pounds, so I needed a lot of band tension, but I did indeed need a lot of band tension. As you see in the last set, I would say I figured it out, and I had to put another red band on. My plan to progress this, because obviously it's a little bit hard to progress with the weight, is to obviously with the same band tension, right? I just did 2 sets of 8 previously. I'm going to do a set of 9 here. So I'm probably going to do 3 sets of 9 on the next workout that I do these, and then gradually add, go to 3 sets of 10, probably 3 sets of 11, maybe 3 sets of 12 before I try to drop a band out. This next thing here is a butcher block stretch. So again, the theme of the day is external rotation. That is what I'm trying to increase, and this is a phenomenal way to get into that deep external rotation. The shoulder flexion at the same time really just ramps that up for whatever reason. So yeah, stretching the muscle after it has been worked extensively. The next workout is deadlifts here. It's going to be warming up for him. Taking 315 here. Doing the same progression here with deadlifts. This is the first jump up. It always feels heavy when you first jump up. But so the workout for today is 3 sets of 3 at 570 pounds. You can see me doing this first set here. Previously, I did my last 4x3, quote unquote. I did an AMRAP with 560, and I got 7. think probably if I would have gotten 8, I probably would have moved up to 575, but 7 was the limit for that set, so decided to be a little bit conservative and go to 570. And honestly, that was probably a good move because these they were tough. There was never a doubt I was going to get it done, but definitely was not easy to definitely amp myself up for these sets. So, yep, I would definitely always rather continuously make progress rather than go too heavy and fail. I'm very happy to say I've not failed a lift in a very long time at this point. And honestly, I could probably make a whole video about this, but I think that should be the goal for most people. I don't think you should be regularly failing working sets. The next thing I did here are these deficit deadlift rows. I absolutely love these. Any kind of like overloaded row, I just really feel my lats the next day. And I've been doing these for a little while. It's been blowing up my back. I'm just progressing these linearly. So every single time I do my deadlifts, I hit these as well. I'm sticking with the same weight for the entirety of the block. And then on the next block, I will move up. So last block I did 365 for 4 sets of 3. This block is going to be 375 for 4 sets of 3, and the block after that I'll do 385. Finishing up with some duck walks. I just always like to open up my hips after I deadlift because I actually find the hips are the place that gets taxed the most for me in deadlifts. So then on Thursday I hit legs, and this is a squat accessory day. So the main squat variation that I'm trying to progress at the moment is a low bar Anderson squat. To powerlifting depth. These are just assistance exercise, obviously, off that. The goal here is twofold. One, obviously just trying to get my quads stronger, and man, does it really do that. I feel my quads so strongly the next day. And the other goal is you'll notice that my feet are in a pretty close stance and my toes are pretty straight ahead. It's actually sort of why my heels are coming off the ground a little bit. Because it's just demanding on that range of motion. I'm even considering putting a little bit extra elevation under the heels. The reason I'm doing that is I'm working on my hip internal rotation while I'm doing this. Anytime that your hip goes into flexion, your hips actually go into slight internal rotation. One of the things I was really noticing was that at the bottom of my squat, and I couldn't figure it out for years, but my toes just tended to splay out, and I couldn't exactly understand why. It wasn't necessarily a problem, but I just couldn't understand why that was happening. And eventually I realized my hip internal rotation is really lacking. It's one of my main focuses. And so all the assistance exercises that I'm selecting are really in service of increasing that hip internal rotation. You sort of see here, obviously is the left leg working, but I'm trying to keep that knee into my center line as much as possible. You can actually see that right knee just there push out, right? And this is the one where that internal rotation is really lacking. I adjust my stance a little bit. At the bottom of the motion, I'm trying to keep that knee in as much as possible, so internally rotated and adducted, but you'll notice its little tendency to push out, and it really feels like I am working. While I'm doing these, it feels like that knee is tracking perfectly straight in line with the toe, and for the most part, it pretty much is. I'm happy with how these are going, but there is just that little tendency right at the bottom, especially when the hip is in maximum flexion, to just push that femur out just a little bit. So trying to, again, work into and out of those ranges of motion and just improve those ranges of motion, obviously improve strength and improve mobility. So moving on to the stretch for today, after I've worked out those internal rotators, right, now I am using a band to pull me deep into internal rotation of the hip, so that improves. And then this frog stretch here is just enforcing that internal rotation, obviously getting a little bit of hip abduction along with that as well. And the goal here is to push my hips, or my butt rather, as far back towards my heels as possible, and that really drives that internal rotation. This weighted butterfly is getting me into hip abduction and external rotation, stretching those adductors. Honestly, they're not even on the workout for today. I just kind of felt like doing them just because my adductors are feeling a little bit tight. And really, again, you've heard me mention this concept, but anytime that you can stretch a group of muscles after they've been worked intensely, the stretching is just way more effective. It's easier to get into that range of motion. This is apparently something that yoga has also touched on, which is you have to build heat. I think they call it prana in the body. And you're meant to do that before you do the stretch in order to make the stretch more effective. So this is the Strongman day on Saturday. I'm doing an axle clean and press at 280 pounds. I'm going to just progress this the same way that I've been progressing my other lifts. I'm just going to run a double progression. So this is my first week of it, so I'm doing this 3x3 with 280. I think that I'm going to drop out I'm probably going to have a heavy axle day, which this is, and then more of a skill-based volume axle day. And I think on the weeks where I do the heavy axle day, I'm going to drop out the bench press workout because the bench press is really just supplemental. And I have been noticing that my Saturday intensity is definitely suffering from all the training volume and the fatigue that I've accumulated during the week. So I think that's a pretty easy way, especially since that bench is not really my main point of interest. It's just to support these other lifts. I think I'm just going to drop that out every other week, and then use it on the weeks where I do the volume base. I'll probably do 15 reps, I think, at a lighter weight of axle clean and press. These went pretty well overall. I like my bar path on both the clean and the press. That bar is staying pretty close to the middle of my foot, you'll notice. Yeah, right there. And let's see. This dip and drive. Yep, right over the middle of the foot. From the belt to the shoulder is actually the hardest part of this lift for me. Once it's at the shoulders, it's pretty much getting pressed. Still working on that split jerk. It's a new one for me, but it is coming along pretty well. I put 355 over my head this way out of a rack recently, so I missed that on the clean. So if I can get that clean up from the belt to the shoulders, I definitely will be able to put a lot of weight over my head come June Nationals as a axle for max. And I don't think 400's off the table. We're going to see how training goes, but that is the goal, and I'm definitely shooting for here. So the next workout, I'll probably linearly progress this until I can't anymore. So I did 280 here today. I think probably 290 is next, and that's a pretty aggressive jump, but I am only doing this once every 2 weeks, so we'll see how long I'm going to be able to keep putting 10 pounds on the bar for. So 290, and the week after that will be 300, and then eventually when that runs out, I'll either do 5 pounds on the bar for that and keep the 3x3, or I might just run that same double progression, so 3x3 and then 2x3, 1x4, 1x3, 2x4, etc. Honestly, the toughest thing about these for me was the cardio. It's essentially kind of 3 lifts in one. The first one is sub-maximal, but yeah, it's sort of it's almost 9 repetitions in a set, really, and it just really gasses you. Luckily, it will be for max in the competition, but it is just good to build work capacity in an event like this. I'm just gradually building cardio as well, which is the win. Last thing for the week is this Zercher Yoke. These are just so much fun. You can go extremely heavy. It's the heaviest front carry that you can possibly do. I was thinking I would probably do sandbags or something, but the gym I was at here didn't have sandbags that were heavy enough to really tax me in the way I wanted. So ended up building up to, this is 636, and then I built up to this 706 with a ridiculous beanie looking like Papa Smurf. I feel these by far the most in my hamstrings. I also feel it in my mid-back, middle of my erectors, and my scapular retractors. I don't feel it as much in my lats, so I'm sure they're definitely turned on and working. But yeah, if you ever want an overloaded carry, I think these are phenomenal for any kind of overloaded band. I also, I think they're really great deadlift accessories as well. I don't deadlift in a gym that has a yoke that I could use it on my deadlift days, but it's a great option if you do.